How you set it up?
So like, have like,
Call this reorganization order, just as a reminder of what's happening here tonight. Following the November election, we have 3 re-elected board members. We'll be swearing them in. In the meantime, the offices of the president and vice president have expired. So the board, once the full board is seated, again, be looking for nominations and then for the board to elect new or returning president and vice president. At that point, I will turn the meeting over to your president. So that's where we are right now. So I've called this meeting to order at 7:30 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'm going to call the roll of just the 6 members who were continuing from last year, and then once we get everybody sworn in, I'll call the roll again for the entire board. Okay, Mrs. Ahmed, Dr. Olati,
here.
Mr. Mazzone,
Here.
Mr. McLean,
Here.
Dr. Racine,
Here.
Mr. Rowland.
Here.
We have a quorum. Okay. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during the 2-hour segment, as limited by Comcast time constraints on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on the Comcast Public Access Channel and on FiOS Channel 38. A video of the meeting can also be viewed on our website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting can make that request in writing to the Board Secretary. I'm going to change the order. I think we should wait on the the minutes approval until after the full board is seated, if you don't mind. Results of the November school election. Numbers that are in the agenda are modified slightly to reflect absentee ballots. Mr. Healy received 1,692 votes. Mrs. Jones received 1,794 votes. And Mrs. Labrera received 1,390 votes. And all 3 were running uncontested. I would now like to take the opportunity to swear in those 3 individuals, Mr. Healy, Mrs. Jones, and Mrs. Labrera. If you would step up to the microphone and we'll... I'm going to give you the cheat sheet here, so that's...
Thank you.
So I'll ask you to raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
Diane Jones,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States and this state
and to the governments established in the United States and this state
authority of the people, so
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Diane Jones,
We swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of member of the Board of Education,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
and I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all the duties of that office
perform all the duties of that office
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations, you're all back on the board. If you would please sign this and get it back to me, I would appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir.
My
Pleasure to
pleasure.
work with you again. Okay, okay.
No, I think it's on 6, so.
Thank you. I'll be back with you.
Okay, on an annual basis, we review the Code of Ethics, which is included in the board's bylaws. So I'm going to distribute 2 pieces of paper to you, one of which has the Code of Ethics on it, and one of which is an acknowledgement of it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, correction, I need to call the roll one more time, this time with all members. Mrs. Ahmed? Dr. Olati?
Here.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mrs. Librera?
Here.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Mr. McLean?
Here.
Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum, thank you very much. Passed around the Code of Ethics. I also have an acknowledgement of receipt, which we hold in our files, so I'll ask you to sign this and send it back my way. And we'll ask the board by individual to read these 10 items. So, Mrs. Jones, if you would start with number 1. I'm sorry, in accordance with NJSA 18A:12-24.1, every board member will abide by the following code of ethics. The board member will
Uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Department of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures.
Mr. Rowland.
Make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children, and seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
Confine his/her board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them.
Number 4, carry out his or her responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with fellow board members, ensure they are well run.
To recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board.
Number 6, refuse to surrender his or her independent judgment to special interest or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends.
Number 7, hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools, which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. In all other matters, he or she will provide accurate information and, in concert with fellow board members, interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its school.
Number 8, vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer.
Number 9, support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties.
Number 10, refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and act on the complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution.
Thank you. And you see the next paragraph is the acknowledgement of receipt of the Code of Ethics. So,
Do you need to read that?
no, you don't need to read it, but you need to sign the acknowledgement and send it back to me. Okay, the next order of business is the election of a board president. Can I have a motion to open the nominations for board president, please?
Move that we open the board nominations for board president.
Moved by Mr. McLean, a second.
Second.
Mr. Mazzone. And I think we do just a voice vote here. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Can I have the nomination for board president? Mrs. Jones?
I nominate Kevin McLean for the office of board president.
We have a nomination for Mr. McLean. Do we have any other nominations? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the nominations for board president?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, seeing we have one nomination, can I have a motion that in accordance with NJSA Chapter 18A, Section 15-1 of Bylaw 0152, the Rutherford Board of Education in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, elects Mr. Kevin McLean as President of the Board of Education, effective immediately until the next organization meeting is prescribed by law. Can I have a motion for that?
Motion.
Mr. Mazzone? And a second?
Second.
Second.
Mrs. Jones? Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, this one I'm going to go around for. Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Motion carried. Congratulations.
I'll tweet my comments out to you all about 4 o'clock this morning. Thank you for that vote of confidence, though. So moving on to our next agenda item, which is election of a board vice president. Is there a motion to open nominations for vice president?
So moved.
Mrs. Jones. Is that seconded
Second.
by Mr. Rowland? And we have to take a voice vote to open the nominations? Or?
Yes.
Yes. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Are there, would anyone like to move a nomination for, yes, Mr.
Sally Librera.
And seconded by Mrs. Jones. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, would like a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Mrs. Jones, seconded by Mr. Mazzone. All in favor of closing nominations for vice president?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? No? And so then we need a, how do you read this? Just a motion to accept?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, to elect, yeah, you can read this.
Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. So for election of Board Vice President, in accordance with NJSA 18A 15-1 and Bylaw 0152, the Rutherford Board of Education in the County of Bergen, New Jersey elects Mrs. Librera as Vice President of the Board of Education effective immediately until the next organization meeting as prescribed by law. Does someone move that, please?
So moved.
Mrs. Jones, seconded by Mr. Mazzone. And we'll do a roll call vote, please. Any discussion regarding that? No?
I think we have wonderful leadership.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Continuing on with the agenda, the next item is our board meeting schedule. And would someone move number 4, please? Mrs. Jones?
I move resolution number 4, listing the board meeting dates for the entire year.
And the meetings will be held at
sorry.
7:30 unless otherwise notified.
Meetings are to be held at 7:30 PM unless otherwise noted.
Thank you. Is there a second for this?
Second.
Mrs. LeBear? Any questions or comments regarding the schedule proposed? No, I would, I've gone through and looked at all of the dates against my current calendar. I do have 2 where it's likely I'll be out of town, even out of continent. But in those cases, we've, I'll confer with you, with our Vice President, to make sure that we have the meeting covered. And we did run into a case last year where both of us were unavailable, and we were able to, ahead of time, approve, a third person to run the meeting. So we'll keep that in front. I would encourage everybody to look at those, and if you see a schedule conflict coming up, alert the board secretary, so we can just make sure we don't run into one where we've got less than a quorum to be present. So with that in mind, I guess we will ask the secretary to call the roll on the board meeting schedule, resolution number 4.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, next item on the agenda is the report of our superintendent.
Thank you. Congratulations to,
Oh, wait, excuse me, we have to, Joe just.
Second take.
Yeah, we rewind for just a moment. We did skip past the minutes approval. So in your packets that you received were the minutes from the regular meeting of December 11th, 2017, and the executive session of that same evening. Were there any questions or comments regarding those minutes? Any changes to be made? Hearing none, and if there's no objection, we'll ask the secretary to enter them into the record, please. Thank you. And now, we move on to the report of the
so
superintendent.
once again, congratulations to our newly re-elected officers and board members, and I'm sure we are looking forward to a year that we have a lot ahead of us, and looking forward to doing the work to get there together. And a Happy New Year to everyone. Very cold New Year. And I do want to make a mention to our building and grounds folks, our maintenance staff, and Mr. Paterno. We were shut down last week, and I think they were in almost every day with a variety of hiccups, some big, some small, with boilers and to keep things up and running. And last night they were here a good part of the evening, getting some things that were offline here in the high school back online. So thanks them, and kudos to them for the work that they've done. Fortunately, none of the repairs are major ones, but when you're putting this kind of strain on your heating system with the kind of weather we've been having, it results sometimes in these problems. A couple of quick comments. I'll save some of the others for the few sections that we have tonight to go over. One is I just received word today from the All Sports Booster Club that they're on the next agenda. They'll be donating $10,000 to the athletic department to purchase rings and jackets for the state championship football team. Traditionally, when the Booster Club has been able to do something like that for a team that has gone as far as they can, with either sometimes it's a state sectional, sometimes it's an overall state championship, they have come through with that, and we appreciate their generosity. So they got in touch with me, Mr. Frazier did, today about 4 o'clock. It was too late to put on today's agenda, but we'll accept a donation at the end of January. And we thank the Booster Club for that. I don't know, I'll see if they want to be, but we appreciate, the check will be here. That's it. We appreciate their support. And I don't know how many of you, I know I saw a few of you there at the parade that honored our football team and some of the younger kids in town, and it really was a nice community event. It really, a lot of folks came out, and it was a cold day, and I had no intention of going up on the platform, which is being held up by poles about this big, and once they brought, when the little kids came up, it was fine, but when they brought the high school team up, I got off the, I got off the, yeah, I got off there. I said, no, I got off there. But it really was a nice way for the community to honor the kids, from the grade schools up to the high school, so it was very nice. Another note, this Friday I'll be meeting with Dr. Valechko and Mr. Kelly and Mrs. Fargo to talk a little bit about what I talked about last meeting, the metamorphosis of the Long-Term Strategic Planning Committee into, I'm not sure yet, we're going to call it a steering committee or an action committee, and meeting on Friday with those individuals I mentioned, just to discuss a little bit of an overview about, what they see as the role and how big the umbrella should get in terms of bringing people under it. And then what I'm planning on doing periodically is anytime something comes, for example, we have this meeting on Friday, so maybe by Monday or so I'll shoot you all an email. Sometimes it'll be more formal, sometimes there'll be some bulleted points to keep you up to speed on things that develop. I think there'll be, going forward with the facilities plan right now and seeing where it all lands, there'll be periods where not much is going to be happening, and then there'll be periods where there'll be a whole lot of stuff coming together. So I don't want to just wait for board meetings or board communication. So if there's information, if you're not getting anything from me, that means, there's nothing pressing that you need to know about. But I'll try to keep you apprised of meetings I may have or information that comes our way, in addition to what we would do at a board meeting. Okay? So that's it for now. I have a couple of things I want to add when we get to personnel and curriculum and instruction. So when we get to, okay.
Thank you. Any questions or comments to the superintendent? Thank you. We'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is report of the president, the new reseated president. So certainly a hearty best wishes to everyone for a healthy and happy and successful 2018. I think congratulations and welcome back to our 3 returning members. The amount of time you're putting in, volunteerism that you're demonstrating is greatly appreciated, certainly by your co-members on the board, but also by the town, and much appreciated in the administration, I'm sure. We anticipate this to be a very busy year, a very important year, and I think in past months we've seen some things happen that are going to make it even more challenging and more important. We really have to keep our eye on the ball, that we're looking at the strategic impact, not for the length of our current 3-year terms, but we're looking at impact in our district and in our town decades out. And so we want to be thoughtful and considerate about it, but as we move ahead, we need to do that with conviction. It will be extra requirements on us all, I think, during the year, and we appreciate in advance that. I don't know if everyone submitted a preference request for the committees. I'm not sure I received from everybody. If not, it was by email, send to me. I'll send out, hopefully by the end of the week, the committee assignments that we'll have, okay? And for this evening, what I'll do is I'll ask Mr. Healy to handle personnel and Mrs. Jones to handle the curriculum and instruction when we get to those sections, and Mrs. Libera to handle the finance as we get to those sections. Calendar, I mentioned, please review it, and if you find any conflicts, let Mr. Kelly know so that we're able to predict with as much certainty as possible that we'll have a quorum for these meetings. The newly elected members or re-elected members will need to fill out the ethics statement online during January?
Well, everybody has to do it.
Everybody,
starting in January,
okay.
So it'll be part of the normal process.
Okay.
We'll be in touch.
And that was one of the items we missed on last year, and it was noted by the county. So it's not just that we all want to be timely on that. Moving on then, that's all, unless anyone had questions for me. No? So at this point, we'd like to open the meeting to the public at 7:59, and as we've been doing for the last during the last part of last year, any topic is available for comment. Yes? So if you would state name, address, and then your comment. Thank you.
Bonnie Corcoran, 390 Montrose Avenue. Happy New Year's. It's going to be a great New Year's. Good news, the mayor and council changed their council meetings. They're now on Tuesday night. Maybe you guys can get some people in here. Holding out hopes. Second thing, Mr. Hurley, you and Officer Bachman sent out letters to the parents back in October, maybe September, October, about the blocking of the driveways, illegal parking. I was wondering if we could send out a refresher, because I have parents now idling, blocking my driveway, to the point where I'm blocking traffic on Montrose Ave and having to get out of my car to knock on the windows and get yelled at because I'm asking them to move so I can get in my driveway, or I'm laying on my horn for 2 minutes trying to get in my driveway. Today, I was trying to get out of my driveway, and I had to lay on the horn for 2 minutes, and the woman had no clue at all. So for idling, I can't ticket them, the cops can't ticket them because they're technically in the car. But it's getting really bad and inconsiderate to the homeowners around. And I know I'm not the only one, and I know Lincoln School is not the only problem. It's everybody. So I was wondering if we could maybe send out another reminder.
I can speak to Officer
Thank you.
Bachman or Chief Russo. That has to come from the police department. We can't police the street. So technically, we sent the letter, but they wrote the letter, and it came through. But I'll give either the chief a call, or I'll give Officer Bachman a call and see if they want to send out the other letter, or if they just want to police the area. I mean, it's nice to give people a warning. We like to do that, but if you've been told something once, well, maybe they might just want to police the area. So I'll speak to the police about it, see how they want to handle it.
Thank you. No other comments? There may be board members that know exactly what you're talking about, by the way. Maybe. But however, that would be a personal point. We won't make that. We'll close the meeting to the public at 8:01 and move on our agenda with our new business, where we'll take action. I'd like to, actually, should have asked before we go into the first section, if everyone feels, or if everybody agrees, that we'll continue with the same format that we've been doing, which wasn't our traditional format, but where the committee chair for each section will report if there have been any meetings, any new activities that the board at large should be aware of, or may wish to be aware of since our last meeting. And then in a general sense, speak to the resolutions that are on the agenda, as we've all had the agendas in front of us. It's been published. There's no need to read through each and every resolution in, verbatim. There may be some resolutions that are important to the point we want to read through them, and there may be some that we want to read through because we feel they deserve some special recognition. But we'll have the committee person give that overview of the motions in front of us. The committee chair will move us through discussion, including discussion with by the superintendent or by the business administrator regarding the general subject matter. And then the chairperson will move en masse or as a slate the resolutions. We'll get a second, last chance for discussion, and then we'll move on. So if everybody's been, I think it's starting to give us some more conversation, dialogue during our meetings, and so we'll continue with that and maybe evolve even further as we go through the year. Okay. With that, I would ask Mr. Healy to please take us through personnel.
Yeah, this evening we have 3 motions to accept staff resignations. That's 1 through 3. We have 3 resolutions to hire staff. That's 4, 5, and 6. We have 1 resolution to approve unpaid family medical leave. That's number 7. 1 resolution to approve home instructor, rather. That's number 8. Number 9 is a resolution to grant additional sick days to an employee who is currently on disability. And number 10, it's a labeled sidebar agreement, and it's a resolution to allow REA staff members to donate up to 14 sick days to a employee on sick leave. And number 11 is a resolution to approve a school safety specialist. And the name looks familiar. I'll leave it there, Mr. McLean, but I believe 9 and 10.
Yeah, we're going to want,
I'll explain.
and since they're not moved yet, when at the point where you move them,
Okay.
I think that you'll likely want to move 1 through
8,
8
and then 10, and then 11. Okay.
And then we'll do 9 and then 10
Okay.
separately.
Yeah,
Okay.
or I guess we do.
Yeah, because you can't approve 10
Till we, right, okay.
So I don't, is there any discussion?
Is, yeah, just a point of clarity for people maybe haven't gone through this, we do this from time to time. The board does not have the legal responsibility nor policy responsibility to grant sick days to someone if they're out of sick days. However, in a sidebar agreement with the REA many years ago, probably 20 years ago or more, when it's been revisited and renewed, the REA members can donate sick days to someone who may need them. And the REA has a process that the person appeals to the REA president. They look at the person's need and their background and their use of sick days in the past, and then they come forward with a request. So the process is that the board has to deny number 9 to vote. The board should consider voting no on number 9 since we don't really have the authority, the board does not have the authority to give additional sick days. And then by voting yes on number 10, you're giving the REA the blessing to solicit days from their membership for this person. Okay? And we've done this from time to time in the past. So any questions about that? The other item I just wanted to mention, the school safety specialist, I had mentioned this earlier in the year. There was a law passed in the summer that required someone with an administrative certificate to be identified as a school safety specialist, whose job it is to supervise and provide oversight for all school safety, security, to be in compliance with state laws, local regulations, police, and so on and so forth, which is basically what the superintendent does. And there's going to be training for this, and 5 days worth of training, which they haven't determined where or when they're going to do that yet. And we were told that sometime in January or February, we would have to officially appoint somebody. And at 3:30 today, came the memo from Trenton that the person has to be appointed by January 17th. So we fast-tracked. I may be able to take care of that parking situation now that I'm the school safety specialist. I may be able to write some tickets out. I'm not sure. But anyway, that explains that. It really is not anything different from what my responsibilities were in terms of school security. But it is. The training may provide some additional information when they finally decide how they're doing that. But that's what that is. Okay.
Any other questions? I was just conferring with Mr. Kelly, and you could move them all together, and individuals could say no to whatever one they want, for instance, number 9, and could vote yes to the rest, and that will be sufficient as well. So, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, if you'd like to make a poll.
So moved for items 1 through 11.
Is there a second? Second. Mrs. Libera? Last chance for discussion or comment.
Just point of clarification. So we were going to say I vote yes 1 through 8, no on 9. 1 through 8, 10, and 11, and no on 9. Is that the way you want to word it?
The way I'll be voting is I'll be saying no to number 9 and yes to all the others.
Okay, that's easier. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Secretary, please call the roll.
Dr. Alati?
No to number 9 and yes to the others.
Thank you for being so clear. Mr. Healy?
No to number 9 and all the others, yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Jones?
No to number 9, and yes to all the others.
Mrs. Obrera?
No to number 9, yes to all the others.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzone?
No to number 9, yes to all the others.
Thank you. Mr. McLean?
No on number 9, yes on all others.
Dr. Racine?
No to number 9, yes to all the others.
And Mr. Rowland?
No on number 9, yes to all the others.
Thank you. Motion's carried except for number 9.
Thank you. Moving on then to curriculum and instruction, I would like to ask Mrs. Jones to walk us through it, please.
Thank you. There are 4 resolutions for board consideration under curriculum and instruction. Resolutions 1 and 2 need affirmation of the superintendent's decisions of 2 HIV investigations. Resolution 3 is for the new and revised curriculum guides, business education and STEM. And resolution number 4 is to amend the NJSQ-SAC Statement of Insurance for the 2017 and 18 school year. Had the discussion, so.
Yeah, well, the curriculum guides were inadvertently left off the last agenda. They were included in the discussion we had at the last curriculum and instruction meeting and just didn't make the last agenda, so that's why they're there. The CUSAC, we did have one late ethics report. It was not a board member. Okay, and it was kind of through a technical blip, but nonetheless it was late. A correction, I just, with visions of Sugar Plum in my head on December 21st, when I was typing up, I didn't look up the date. The actual date is April 30th, I believe, every year is the deadline for the ethics, and I had said March, but this did get into the system after April 30th. So we lose a point there on the CUSAC, so we just have to resubmit it, which I already did, but we need a board resolution that we resubmitted it. But to the point that Mr. McLean made before, when you get this notification sometime in January, it's a pretty simple process. You've all done it before. It's usually, a lot of times your information is saved from previous years. You just have to amend anything that's different. It doesn't take very long. If you can be one of those things where the first time you see it, you do it. If you can, then it gets moved along, because it's not just board members, it's anyone who has any budgetary responsibility. So administrators and supervisors and Board of Ed, central office personnel, we all have to do it. So was it, Mr. Kelly, about maybe 40 people in all, or?
Yeah, 35.
Yeah, something like that. So one of the things, and down the road in February or March, I talked a little bit about this at curriculum and instruction meeting. We'll talk a little more about some of the changes that are coming down with CUSAC. and the new Every Student Succeeds Act, which really is doing a lot more quantitative and analysis and a lot less leniency. You know, it used to be if you had certain number correct, you know, a certain number fulfilled, you were okay. Now they're looking pretty much at 100% and everything. So it's important that we do some of this stuff that some of the stuff we can't control. You know, some of the things, attendance rates and test scores, you know, you do your best to make sure. But things that we can control, like sending forms in on time and all that, we need to. Okay. And that's it.
I move resolutions 1 through 4.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Rowland. Last chance for any questions or discussions.
Hearing none, we ask the secretary to poll the board, please.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lebrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move into finance and ask Mrs. Lebrera to please take us through that.
There's one motion tonight for finance, and it is the approval of bills. I move number 1, which is to approve bills totaling $3,698,804.48.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mazzone. Any questions regarding the resolution?
Hearing none, ask the secretary to please poll the board.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lebrera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes, abstaining on 020838.
Thank you. Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing for buildings and grounds this evening, and nothing, is there anything from any member that we would consider old business or any business?
Reminder that the Finance Committee is going to, the newly formed or the former, some Finance Committee is going to meet on Tuesday, the 16th, I believe. That's the day after Dr. King's birthday when schools are closed, to continue our budget process. And we will tentatively plan to have some committee meetings beginning in February once the committee assignments are sent out. Tentatively, maybe February 5th. Usually Mondays we ask you to try to reserve. We'll see where we're at with finance. If finance is usually the priority at this time of year to try to get the budget process done. So if we have to bump some of the other committees to the end of February, we will. But tentatively, February 5th will certainly, I think, be a finance meeting. I think we already have that penciled in. Maybe some of the other committees as well. One committee that will be meeting in February will be policy. You know, we talked about holding back some of the policy revisions that are there. Many of them are mandated and don't really need or discussion, but we had talked about just moving some of those forward. So some of those we may move ahead of a committee meeting if I can't get the February 5th date, but I thought for the first revisions of the new policy, maybe we'd have the committee meet just to review them all. So that's just a look ahead, and as Mr. McLean said, once he sends out the committee assignments, I'll follow up shortly thereafter with a tentative list of meeting dates, keeping in mind that we try not to meet just for meeting's sake. So if there's no need for a committee to meet, we don't meet. Because as we said, we're going to be meeting a lot, I think, this year in a number of different varieties. So we'll meet when needed, but we'll at least give you tentative dates. All right?
And I just today found I have a conflict with that 16th, so maybe we'll look, I'm not sure which way though, a day one way or the other, maybe. Yeah.
Can I just say something?
Yes, please.
Just with regard to any potential renovations that we do, we have gone out, or we have issued a request for proposals for construction management services. This morning, we had a quick tour of 3 of the buildings for any of those firms who are interested in seeing the scope of the project. The proposals are due in by next Wednesday, so we'll be discussing those in the Finance Committee meeting on the 16th as well.
And was there a healthy number of,
Well, we sent the RFP out to 5 different firms. I went into the Department of Ed's site to see who has been pre-certified, and also to my association, which has associated members, and I got 5, and I sent it, so 4 of them showed up. So it's a good sign, and we're optimistic that something good will come of this.
Very good. Is there any legislative update?
Yes, and this, I think it's still under old business. I just want to call your attention to the school board notes, which is a publication that you all get in the mail. You may not have gotten one yet, but you will be getting it shortly, okay? And it's really very informative about what's going on in legislation and what some districts, have accomplished or not accomplished. It does point out the 3 school districts that did have the referendum on December 12th. Our last board meeting was the 11th. And so I was very interested because East Rutherford was one, and unfortunately it did go down as well as Nutley. What did pass was Westwood, and the one interesting thing that I found was that they had district capital, the total amount was for $23,891,520. But for district capital reserve, they had $13,097,000. So that brought it down further to only 13, I'm not reading this correctly.
They're probably using some of their capital reserve
Right.
funds
Right.
to pay for some of these renovations, yeah.
As a result, the district would only have an $8 million debt service, $8 million and change for them. But that was probably why it passed. I mean, it was an interesting thing. It's the only one I've ever seen that had that amount of money, as it. The other thing is that it gave a review of what happened at the Delegate Assembly. That was what I went down to at the end of November, and that's on the front page, and it does talk about opposing the last-minute cuts to the budget when Middletown had done their budget, and then they lost over $300,000, and it cost them last minute to scramble when the state aid was cut. And the other one, the Bloomfield Board of Education requested that when we are restricted to 2%, that all out-of-district placements also be, subject to that same 2% to help the districts meet their obligations. So those two are a recap. The only other one that I would just like to mention, and it's just quick, and I think I'm just running through what I know of the schools, is that securing public places in the schools. Pardon me, A 1869 provides that the school district be used as a polling place as they see that there's no other access into the building. So for my information, when we vote in the high school, it's the 3rd door we go into the old gym, the 200 gym. Is there a gate that blocks you from going down to the principal's office?
Can't do that.
You can't do that.
You'd be violating fire code.
Violation. So then how do we do that? That's going to now be something that we're going to have to do?
I haven't seen the legislation yet. If it is, they'll shut us down.
Well,
Because you can't even run, even if we didn't have school, it would mean closing school for every election. Every election. And even if we did that, the fire marshal doesn't allow us to close gates when we use the gyms for recreation. So I think that's another example of laws being passed without a sense of what reality is. So I haven't seen it. I'll have to see it, and I'm sure there'll be some.
I'll
Yeah.
just read
I mean, I got that today in the mail, but I didn't read the law.
Well, that's what the update
Yeah,
is. So
I know.
the NJSBA supports this resolution, so.
What we do, though, just as when we have school openings, we usually put hall
And
monitors.
Union is another one the same way, too?
All the other schools are the same way.
Well, Pierpont, you just go in the auditorium, so it is.
Well, you still can have, but you can still walk into the building. I mean, if someone wasn't watching, just go out the other door. I mean, I always go into the auditorium from the inside, and those doors have to be open. You can't lock people in. So any building, you could access the rest of the building. We usually put hall monitors out when the kids are in school.
So in this particular year, we're talking the primary election. We close the school for the general election.
We close the schools in November. That's the only election we
Right.
close.
And then have, with the referendum, then we'll be closed in September, or will that be open?
No, we'll be open.
Yeah, okay, so that's something for,
Well, again, we'll deal with it.
get the baby gates.
We'll deal with it.
The baby gates, they have to hop over it.
There is one other piece of legislation I would mention. Maybe I'll forward you this email tomorrow. It affects, interscholastic sports. And, the Assembly and Legislature, without any consultation with NJSIA, which is the governing body for the Athletic Association, or any conversation with superintendents, athletic directors, or anybody, put two bills that are being fast-tracked. They're going to be voted on as early as the 4th, which is Thursday. And what the bills allow is two things that are particularly, I think, problematic in terms of public education. One is that in a city with multiple high schools, for example, Jersey City, Patterson, with multiple high schools, there is a process now. If you wanted to combine a sport, say we didn't have enough kids to play a certain sport, and Lyndhurst didn't have enough kids, there's an appeal process through NJSIA to do a combined program. And there's certain requirements. It's not as easy as just wanting to do it. And you have to show that the real drop in enrollment in numbers so that you don't come up with like a super team. Okay? Well, this bill would allow any school district with multiple high schools to field one team. So, for example, if Jersey City wanted to have one basketball team, they could take their 5 high schools. And so not only does it create this super team, it also, the last time I checked, the purpose of high school athletics and activities is to provide opportunities for kids, not to diminish them. And again, NJSIA was not even informed about this and have a position paper being opposed to it. The other one is if a student attends a private school and that school doesn't have a team in the sport they want to play, then the district, without any local control, it's not like the board has to pass policy, you have to allow that student to play on your team. So you would be funding an athlete who is not in your school district, who you're not, and I'm not talking about a kid who goes to, like we have kids who go to Bergen Tech and they want to wrestle by us. The principal sends a letter, we approve, but that's still our student that we're paying tuition. I'm talking about someone who chooses to go to a parochial school, private school, and they don't have a tennis team, they want to come back and play here. And in addition, that could displace one of our own kids. And also in terms of regulations and rules and behavior and things like that, it's not your student. So NJSIA is opposed to these, and they're trying to drum up support last minute because they only found out about it about 2 weeks ago. And it's being fast-tracked. I don't know what the lobby is behind it or who the push is behind it, but I will forward you the email with the bill numbers tomorrow morning and how you could reach out if you so choose to your local representatives if you choose to do that.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on old business or legislative comments? It is 8:25, and we will again open the floor to the public for comment. Seeing none, at 8:25 we will close the meeting, the floor to the public. Is there an executive session needed? No need for
Just one
exec.
more comment.
Yes?
What you're referring to is listed for also cooperative sports programs.
Right.
It is listed on what
Okay.
Joey is referring
So you have the information there, but I'll still forward you because if you feel so inclined, this has a sample letter or email and a link to, feel so.
Okay, I think that concludes the agenda for the evening, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Mrs. Luber, seconded by Mr. Healy. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.